What's going on, everybody? This is Ed DeLauder. I'm here with Jeremiah Retzlaff. We are on the clock here at Best Ball Night School. Jeremiah, what do you got cooking up in this slow draft right here?
All right, Ed, I've got Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray are my two quarterbacks. Saquon Barkley is my anchor running back. My wide receivers are A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. I have pulled off the Hurts, Barkley, Brown, and Devonta Smith quadruple stack. I have Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Jacoby Myers, and Lab McConkey. And then I also have a fifth member of the stack. I got Dallas Goedert. I just went all in.
Woo!
Yep. So this draft is with Wyatt, FFB, and Omega King. So this is a good group. It's just a small group cash game that we have going on. And I'm in a position where I definitely need some running back help. And at the top of my queue, I have Blake Corum, Gus Edwards, and Jalen Wright. I'm wondering if you could steer me in the right direction.
Man, I know we've talked previously about you shedding some Jalen Wright, that you've got a lot of exposure. But hey, this is a cash game, so who cares? It don't matter. You've got Corum, Edwards, Wright. Edwards on the Chargers, I feel like he's going to get some work, but they're totally drafting somebody. It very well could be Blake Corum that they wind up drafting there. And you've wasted a pick with Gus Edwards. So I would lean towards one of these two rookies. I know you love Jalen Wright. I would probably lean Corum myself, only because I think that there's going to be better draft capital there. And usually that's a good predictor of first year opportunity. Either of those two rookies, though, is fine by me. How do you want to go about this, Jeremiah?
I think I'm with you. I want to go Blake Corum. I could continue to add the exposure to Jalen Wright. In this situation, though, I have clicked a lot of Blake Corum. I like getting exposure to him. I like the idea of him being a a Los Angeles Charger. And right now, Dallas Goedert, I'm not so hot about him being my first tight end. I love my wide receiver room. Again, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Jacoby Myers, and Lab McConkey. I liked what I did with Kirk and Ridley. They're the two players who are affected by the signing of Ridley with the Tennessee Titans. But really, I do need to add some Blake Corum. So I'm going to click Blake Corum, put him on the board, and add him to the team.
Love it. Truly amazing what you did with the Eagles there. I've tried to get just Hurts, Smith, and Brown on the same squad. Haven't been able to do it. You've got 5 Eagles there. Absurd. Great job by you. So, Jeremiah, there was some news that broke shortly after our last recording. Keenan Allen was traded in the middle of the night to the Chicago Bears. He was told to pack his bags from the Chargers and leave. How are you now approaching these two teams that were involved in this trade, both the Bears and the Chargers?
I would say we can confidently pick Caleb Williams. The Bears' weapons are a rising tide to lift Caleb Williams' boat. While Caleb Williams is a top-tier prospect, rookies need support. And what better way to buoy his rookie season than to give Caleb all these weapons? If the Chargers stand pat with pick 5, I'll go with Malik Nabers. I really like him to go to the Chargers. Granted, they could go for a tackle and just be contrarian. A whole lot of smoke is out there about Nabers being over Marvin Harrison Jr. So with Marvin Harrison Jr. gone between the Patriots or the Cardinals, I expect the Chargers to go with Nabers. Daniel Jeremiah had a good bit in his Move the Sticks podcast recently. He said how these mock drafts are just conversations and exercises for us. He even said the GMs don't even know what they want. So they're still learning as they go, just as we are as we go. But I'm very bearish on Justin Herbert in 2024. It's going to be running in defense for Jim Harbaugh's Chargers. How do you feel, Ed?
Yeah, I think that the Bears are very easily stackable at this point. You could take DJ Moore and pick 20. You could come back with Keenan Allen, pick 41, and then you get Caleb in the 100s. I do think that Caleb Williams, once he actually gets on the Bears officially, his ADP is going to rise. And I do think that ultimately he may wind up going near quarterback 10 off the board around where Kyler Murray's going. And those are two, I think, similar profiles there. And I think that that's probably where his ADP is going to ultimately end up. So I'm still interested in getting those players along with Caleb, because I do think that there's going to be some upward trajectory in Caleb Williams' ADP. I am a little hesitant, though, because we've got some pretty high ADPs here with both DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. The Caleb Williams is essentially going to have a CJ Stroud type of year. Okay. CJ Stroud had about 4,100 passing yards as a rookie. It's a pretty good rookie season. I think Andrew Luck has the most passing yards as a rookie at 4,300, somewhere in their neighborhood. So you're going to have a really consolidated target share there. And there's still some risk, I think, that the Bears take a receiver at 9. I don't think that's going to happen, but there are some mocks out there. And then all of a sudden, this target share that looks super consolidated with both Moore and Allen soaking up probably about 65% of the targets there, that becomes a bit dicey. So there's some risk there, but I'm willing to take it at this point only because Caleb Williams is going where he is, and I do think he winds up coming back up. With respect to the Chargers, man, I'm all out, man. I feel like this is just going to be a rebuilding year for them. I know that they restructured a lot of those contracts on defense with Bosa and Mack, so they still have the veteran defense there. I just don't see them being good this year with what they've got. You've got Herbert. They've already said that they're going to run the ball a lot more. I think that the running back that's going to get the opportunity there the most is not on the roster. We just talked about that in that draft right there. So I'm really hesitant to draft much of the passing game there. And I'm hesitant to even draft their current running back in Gus Edwards. I do think if you are going to speculate, though, I think they probably wind up trading down from where they're at. I think that with the Vikings loading up, which we'll talk about a little later in the show, they're probably a good trade candidate for them. And I do think that if they are going to get somebody, it's probably going to be one of the receivers that are going to be going in the 20s, or even like Brock Bowers at 11, or if Odunze falls to there, I think that that's probably what's going to happen. So if I have one of those guys, I might, and I need a quarterback, I might reluctantly put Justin Herbert on my roster just as like a speculative stack there. But otherwise, I'm pretty much all out on the Chargers.
All right, so you heard it for Night School, how we feel about the Bears, how we feel about the Chargers. We'll go into our next topic. Do you remember your high school locker combination? All right, we're here at Night School. Remember, it was 0 to 39. So what we're going to do is compare sets of first 3 picks in our drafts with their locker combo, and we're going to find out which side do you prefer.
So, Jeremiah, I'm going to start off asking it here. So we've got a locker combination of pick 7, 18, and 31. You're going Breece Hall, Saquon Barkley, some double running back there, and then Michael Pittman at 31. You've then got the locker combo of 1, 24, 25, CMC, Chris Olave, and Rashee Rice. Which combination of players do you like best there?
I've got CMC and Breece even enough in this combo. I have Olave over Barkley, and to me, Rice puts it over the top over Pittman. Give me the CMC, Chris Olave, Rashee Rice, 124, 25, and we unlock.
Love it. What about a combination of 3, 22, 27 with CeeDee Lamb going at 3, Chris Olave going at 22, and Sam Laporta at 27? And then coming back, comparing that to Tyreek Hill at 2, Saquon Barkley at pick 23, and Chris Olave at pick 26.
So here we have Chris Olave canceling out. Granted, they're at slightly different spots. So Olave is a wash. I really like Lamb over Tyreek Hill. And then give me Laporta to break Saquon Barkley. So Lamb, Tyreek, they're close enough. Olave cancels out. Give me the onesie advantage for Sam Laporta over Barkley, where running back, it can be had later. I do some of these anchor running back builds, but I don't mind when it's a onesie position and I'm trying to get a advantage at the tight end position. Give me the Lamb, Olave, and Laporta side, 3, 22, 27, unlocked.
All right, next one. We've got Jahmyr Gibbs at pick 10, A.J. Brown at 15, Jalen Hurts, pick 34, or Jahmyr Gibbs at 8, Ayuk at pick 17, and then Laporta at pick 32. You just add a stack with the last one there. Which one you using to unlock your locker here at Night School?
Give me Hurts Brown stack with the potential overall running back 1 in Jahmyr Gibbs. We talked about Brees and we talked about Bijan Robinson. Give me Gibbs as a potential in that overall running back 1 spot. Gibbs, Ayuk, Laporta is very close as you have Purdy and Goff to cap later in the draft. But by all means, I'm going to go with the Gibbs, and I got the layup stack with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts.
All right. Next one, I want you to consider Jeremiah Tyreek Hill at the 101. So pick one. Chris Olave at 24, and then Diggs at 25. So 124, 25. Or you get Tyreek Hill at pick 4, Marvin Harrison Jr. at pick 21, and then Michael Pittman at pick 28. What are you using to unlock your locker here?
So in these two scenarios, Tyreek cancels out, although I do Tyreek at 4 versus 1. That's something good to be noted. But give me Olave and Diggs as more proven players over Marvin Harrison Jr., a rookie, and Michael Pittman Jr. I'm a huge Pittman fan, but I like Olave over Marvin Harrison Jr. at the moment. And then I also like the career that Stephon Diggs has had over Pittman. And I like Josh Allen. It's more of a vote for the quarterback in Josh Allen than Anthony Richardson to get Stephon Diggs the ball. Now for you, Ed, Amon-Ra, Saquon, Laporta with 8-17-32, or Puka Nacua, Rashee Rice, Rachaad White, 11-14-35.
So this is a tough one here, but I'll take the Lions and Saquon Barkley using 8-17-32 to unlock my locker here at Night School. It does leave you thin at elite wide receiver. You still got Amon-Ra on the squad, so that's great. He's going to give you some great production. You're passing up on players like London, Olave, Harrison Jr., DJ Moore, all around that area to get a running back, get a hero build going with Barkley, and then filling in a onesie position. It sets you up nicely for a line stack later with Jared Goff. And to be quite frank, with the other one, Rachaad White at 35, that just scares me, man. That scares me so much. And that scares me so much that it really offsets the two elite receivers that I think you're getting there early on. So I'll go with Amon-Ra, Saquon Barkley, and Sam Laporta to unlock it here at Night School.
So here we go. The next one. 2-23-26 unlocks Tyreek Hill, Davante Adams, and Stephon Diggs. And then 3-22-27 unlocks Justin Jefferson, Chris Olave, and Michael Pittman Jr.
So I think I'm going to go with the three receivers here, which obviously both of them have 3 receivers. But I'm going to go with the Jefferson build, with Chris Olave and Michael Pittman Jr. with 3-22-27. Jefferson is falling in drafts, but I'll pick him here to spike my exposure. I think that exposure is going to get even higher because he is falling here. You've got Chris Olave, who's still an alpha. I think that Derek Carr does have some opportunity to be a little bit better than he was last year, and Chris Olave is going to be the prime person to benefit from that. And then you got Michael Pittman, who's just soaking up opportunities in that Colts offense. It is close here, though, because I do think that between Tyreek and Adams, that you got 2 studs there, but Stephon Diggs really scared me lately. He really did just a terrible job ending the year last season. He only had 2 double-digit fantasy point games since week 10 of last season, and that includes a 10-game sample because he was in the playoffs. So that's really scary to me, and so scary that I will be going with Justin Jefferson, Chris Olave, and Michael Pittman Jr. to unlock my locker here.
So what's really fun about this, Ed, and this is a little surprise we have for you, for our audience, this setup was a draft that both you and I had earlier in the offseason. You were the one. You took Tyreek, Davante, and Stephon Diggs. And your boy, Coach Retzlaff, took Justin Jefferson, Olave, and Pittman.
Like most things, Jeremiah, you're usually right. So that makes sense to me.
But I've got a feeling about this next one. Let's go with Jahmyr Gibbs, DJ Moore, Sam Laporta, 10-15-34, compared to CMC, Josh Allen, and Stephon Diggs to 23-26. Which side?
I know that my prior analysis here may lead you to believe that I'd be going with Jahmyr Gibbs, DJ Moore, and Sam Laporta. However, I think the opportunity to get both CMC, Josh Allen on your squads offsets some of the uneasiness that I've got with Diggs. You've also got the opportunity here to, assuming everything works out with Stephon Diggs, which most of the time this stuff blows over in the offseason, right? So everything works out there. You've got Josh Allen's presumptive wide receiver 1. So you've got a nice stack going there. You've got the RB1, the quarterback 1. I'll take that build and hopefully hit on receiver later on. So I'll take CMC, Josh Allen, and Stephon Diggs to unlock it here.
Another one for our audience. This was another draft that you and I had. This time you selected the team you had, the start you had for your locker combo, CMC, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. For me, in reflection, looking at this, I have to applaud you. I really like that start you have. You've got that opportunity. You've got the stack lined up. Granted, these dramas in the offseason can simmer down. You have a stack there. You quite possibly have the 101. And then we like the ability of maybe you could get George Kittle later, get Brock Purdy. So that could be a fantastic rest of your squad, which I'm sure if we look back, it's an excellent squad. But anybody would be very happy right now to start in that manner. So this time you picked the start that you had. That was a draft that you and I were both in. Next up, Garrett Wilson, Saquon Barkley, and Malik Neighbors, 12, 13, 36. And then we're going to unlock Jamar Chase, Brandon Ayuk, and Saquon Barkley for 5, 20, 29. Which side do you like?
Yeah, I think I'll easily take the Chase side here just because you're getting Barkley at a much lower ADP. That's probably where I'm like really happy to take him as opposed to pick 13. But setting that chasm in ADP aside, Chase sets you up so that you could easily stack Higgins and Burrow later. Ayuk, very easily paired with Purdy. You've got elite options there at quarterback. I'm not sold on Aaron Rodgers being an elite option at quarterback this season. That's pretty much the reason why I'll go Jamar Chase, Brandon Ayuk, and Saquon Barkley to unlock my locker here.
Now, Ed, did you have a draft that you wanted to go over?
I do. Let me pull this up here. So this is a bit of a fun one at this point. I'm here picking at pick 41. This is going to be the fourth round. Okay. I started this draft off unlocking a locker here with Breece Hall at pick 8, Nico Collins at pick 17, and Tank Dell at pick 32. I'm setting up for a Stroud Houston Texans stack. Stroud has been dropping lately, and I think that I could probably push him down the board a little bit further since I've got his 2 receivers here. It is the first draft I have selected Nico Collins because I've got like Gabe Davis 2022 PTSD with him. I think that's where I think he's just him to me. And I was fooled too many times with Gabe Davis in the second round that season for me to confidently click on Nico Collins here regularly. But I did it here just because you got to do it. So I've got some players in the queue. We're going to ignore Stroud for now. He's just there for purposes for later. But I do have some receivers queued up here. It's probably where I'm leaning towards going because I've already got Breece Hall as like my hero build here. I guess if I wanted to add running back, I could add ETN here. I really don't think I want to do that. I'm debating between Higgins, Metcalf, Allen, and Odunze. I think I have an idea as to where I want to go with this, but what are your thoughts on this so far, Jeremiah?
Cool. I love how you get Breece Hall, number 8. He's another guy that I'm thinking of just yanking the steering wheel and in those first 5 spots, making sure I draft him along with Bijan Robinson. Something cool in a vacuum here you have queued up, and this is why we do so many different drafts. I love 1-for-1, the idea of putting Rome Odunze on this team versus T. Higgins. However, T. Higgins was just talking about all these teams that he'd be interested in playing for. Now, whether or not the Bengals would do that for T. Higgins is a whole other story. I like, though, the idea, just on the off chance the compensation is right, Teams are more progressive in how they'll trade these days. It's not a guarantee, but it's more frequent than we realize now. What about the idea of you click T. Higgins, and then we're almost at the point where at 59 ADP, you can lock up Stroud. You might have an opportunity at Collins, Tank Dell, T. Higgins, and CJ Stroud. You would backdoor after the news. Now it's a risk because if it doesn't happen, hey, worst case scenario, you just have T. Higgins. So where do you stand on that idea?
Yeah, no, that's actually where I was thinking here. It's almost as if you're reading my mind here, Jeremiah. I do the idea of just speculating on a Higgins landing spot and him potentially going to the Texans. I do think there are other outs for him too to be the wide receiver one on his team. I think that he could be somebody that is easily traded to a lot of the teams later on in the draft and just be the guy that soaks up 25% target share somewhere else besides Cincinnati. And even if he is on the Bengals, I still think he's somebody that I'm happy to have on the team. I am going to add Higgins here to try and get ahead of some potential news if he does go to the Texans. So let's add him to the squad for that reason.
You know what's neat about that too is worst case scenario, you could look around for some Joe Burrow. You could also look around for whatever team. Let's say he does exit and go to another team, but it doesn't happen to be the Houston Texans. There's a handful of other teams that T. Higgins could end up, and he could be the number one wide receiver on that squad. So there's a lot of outs there, and it's really worth it based on what you have going. And if you still end up hitting CJ Stroud, you've got a double stack. You've got both his wide receivers. You have Noah Brown way late. You have Dalton Schultz. And then as you're plucking and picking the rookie players, they could end up revealing and getting drafted by the Houston Texans. So you have plenty of outs. And then there's Joe Mixon who's out there, right? So I'm going to veer into the next topic for offseason free agency updates. I'm going to spit a little hot fire here and then go over to you, Ed. We've been talking about Hollywood Brown to the Chiefs. 71 ADP in the late six. For me, he's a 4.32 guy for the 40. He was 166 pounds when he was a rookie. People forget how fast, how light he was, how quick he could move. He will be 27 in June. In 2021, he had 91 receptions with 1,008 yards in his last season with Baltimore. In 2023, he had 51 receptions for 574 yards in 14 games. He was wide receiver 52. Now pan over to Rashee Rice. He's at the 25 ADP, 2-3 term. Rashee Rice is the alpha wide receiver alongside Travis Kelce. Rashee Rice was number 7 in red zone targets with 22 last season. That's from Player Profiler. Patrick Mahomes has that chemistry with Rashee Rice. If you can recall that argument in the Super Bowl prior to OT, Rashee Rice, you might just think, oh, who's this guy yelling at this legendary quarterback? Rashee Rice is a baller, and I think he's elevating to that status where he's mano a mano with his teammate there in Patrick Mahomes. They want to elevate and win a championship. He's a big-time player, and in the red zone, that is only going to grow. So I like Hollywood Brown to the Chiefs, but we have been befallen so many times by players who have not panned out. I like the best ball angle for Hollywood, but give me Rashee Rice every time over Hollywood Brown. You're paying the piper. You're paying up on the price, but I'm going to go with Rashee Rice. What do you think, Ed?
Man, I think I can't say it any better, Jeremiah, but I'll try. I know that last show we talked about Marquise Brown's ADP, comparing that to Adonai Mitchell, and they were both in the 100s, and holy bananas. This ADP spike, I think, is a bit out of control at pick 71. We've seen this happen so many times with guys that are just coming off injuries, going to the Chiefs, that just disappoint time and time again. They sign the cheap contract. The narrative always goes, oh, they signed cheap so that they get their career back on track with the best quarterback in the league. And it just never pans out. It was Sammy Watkins first. It was Juju Smith-Schuster. It was Kadarius Toney via trade. All these guys, nothing. And you know what? I liked Hollywood Brown at one point during this whole fantasy experience, particularly. He was coming out. He was fast. I liked him when he went to Arizona and he was hooking up with Kyler Murray. I like that idea, but he hasn't posted a 1,000-yard season in 2 years at this point. There's going to be some spike weeds with him. He's that type of boom bust player. But if you're getting somebody who's 120% better than Marcus Valdes-Scantling, like, what are you really getting there, right? Particularly at pick 71. So I will pass on that. To me, it's absurd. Maybe the only like saving grace of this ADP is that it does give you some of an out if you are going for a Mahomes stack. I know that there are some times where I miss out on Rashee Rice. I try and go like Mahomes, Kelsey, and it just never works. It doesn't work. It works sometimes, but you'll miss. So maybe that gives you an out if you wind up going Mahomes first over Kelsey. But that's really the only saving grace. If I don't have Mahomes on the team and Mahomes unstacked, I'm going elsewhere. There's no reason, I don't think, to consider Marquise Brown at where he's going now, because it is bananas. Jeremiah, what are your thoughts on Justin Fields? Also another trade that went down. Justin Fields going to Pittsburgh to back up Russell Wilson potentially. Where are we at with this?
In comparison, both players, Justin Fields, who is said to not be the starter, 136 ADP in round 12. Russ is 184 round 16. So how is that going to square away? Justin Fields has been a hot button topic. The NFL has told us how they feel by so many teams passing up on him in the trade market. Ironically, though, Fields, who's given a spot start, let's say it's week 5, he could easily be the QB1 overall in fantasy that week. Any week, really. Top 5, he would be in those higher rankings. We love that Konami code upside. But the volatility is what has landed Fields with this backup role. So Russ has been given the assurances. However, if we're 3 weeks into training camp and Russ is playing like Cheeks, there will be changes. So Russ plays like Cheeks, changes. Cheeks, changes. That's it. If it is 6 weeks into the season and it's bad, there will be changes. Russ will get the first look. Fields is down for now, but not dead yet. I am out in one quarterback contest. It will be very appealing. 3rd and 4th core beat quarterbacks with Superflex tournaments. I'm thinking handcuff upside like you would for running back. Justin Fields will be that high risk, high reward, 3rd quarterback, maybe 4th quarterback in your Superflex builds, which hopefully Underdog will drop here soon. Ed, how do you feel about Justin Fields?
Man, I'm so out at this ADP. This is like the opposite of the Hollywood Brown situation where like the ADP, in my opinion, has completely overreacted. It's absolutely underreacted to where like Fields went, what he went for, a future 6th round pick. Are we kidding me? We're kidding me. Like that's what, again, like you said, that's what the NFL thinks of him. We need to adjust. And I don't think anyone is adjusting. And this really reminds me a lot about the Trey Lance situation last year. Okay. Everybody was, or at least I fell for it. I fell for Trey Lance last year. Just the upside. I was stuck on that. I was like, man, if I could get him here and he starts, I win this thing. Like I win this thing. I'm set up so nicely to just advance and advance and advance. But there was news throughout the entire offseason. Even at the start of the offseason, Purdy, he's injured. He's our starter when he comes back. And everybody's like, no, they can't give up on him. He's a 1st round pick. They can't give up on him. And they did. And we're in the same spot with Fields. Fields has now been traded to an entirely different team, and people are still clinging to the idea that he's going to just wrestle this job away from Russ. And he might, like you said, he very well might. Russ did not play well last year. He played like Cheeks, and he might play like Cheeks again. It's possible. But that being said, at an ADP of where Fields is going at, what did you say, 139? 136? 136? I'm out. There's just no way I'm getting him anywhere at that ADP. I'll wait until the season's about to start and people hopefully come to Jesus and they realize that Russ is going to be starting there.
So next we have Sam Howell to Seattle, 238 ADP, round 20. Geno Smith, 175 ADP in round 15. How do you feel about Sam Howell?
Yeah, I know that some people are also hyped up about how there were some rumors that they traded him to compete with Geno and that got shot down. I do think it is Geno's quarterback room. It's his starting job. I don't think he's really threatened by this at all. I think the only way that Howell sees playing time is if Geno is just trash, right? And I don't think he was really that bad last year. He just wasn't as good as he was the year before. It's not like he like Daniel Jones himself in Seattle. Okay. So I think that if you're looking at this and you're trying to find a way to paint a narrative where Howell gets on the team as the starter, it's probably going to happen like well within the back end of the season where like it's over. I think they can move off of Geno after this year potentially. I got to look that up, but I could be wrong about that. But I'm pretty sure the way the contract is structured, it is similar to Daniel Jones's contract insofar as it's like a 2-year deal-ish. So they could move on from Geno. Howell could get some reps towards the end of the year if things are just not going well. But I do think that this is Geno's starting job. It's not something that has scared me off of that tertiary Seahawks stack with him. And I'll continue to draft that stack. Where are you at with this, Jeremiah?
No, so it's just like Fields. I want to see Howell's Superflex ADP. He'll be like attempting upside cuff, third or fourth quarterback on these builds. Give Geno the nod in one quarterback drafts. We like to say buy the dip for Geno, but his ADP has really been nothing but a dip. So there's no real value gain. Just people may stay off him just a little bit. That is Geno Smith because of Sam Howell being acquired. For super flex tournaments, Fields and Howell, they're going to be the hopium type of picks that are riskier but have high upside setting. Now let's go over to Rondale Moore, Atlanta ADP of 217, round 19. Desmond Ridder went over to Arizona. And now we have Rondale Moore in the fast track in Atlanta. How do you feel about that?
Man, I'm a Rondale Moore truther to a certain extent. I pull up that page on Player Profiler, see Ant-Man, and I'm like just drawn back again, right? It just brings me back in, right? And much Godfather Part 3, when this trade happened, right? I'm back in again, man. It sucked me back in. I think that there's a lot of potential with this offense. I think Rondale Moore is going to get some opportunity there. He's probably going to get played out in the slot, probably going to get some gadget plays. And I think that if this offense does what most people think it can do, there's going to be some late round best ball value there, particularly with him going in the 19th round in picks that are not going to exist when the season starts. So I've been taking him as a late round play. And I'm actually like one of the few he's one of the few players that like I'm excited to get in round 19 and 20, as sick as that sounds. Jeremiah, what's your take on Rondale Moore joining Kirk Cousins in Atlanta?
Rondale Moore expands the Atlanta offense. He's a low ADOT, end arounds, carries up the gut between the gaps type of player that can be utilized. He had a little bit of run with the run last year, and I would like to see that continue. Nothing to take away from Bijan for Bijan's effectiveness, but just mixing in. Same for London. It won't be a threat to London. Rondale Moore is more of a lower grade weapon. Stylistically, we love the Debo-like role. However, figure best case scenario is utilization without any real serious volume. 19th round, Rondale Moore, he is McDowell's to Debo Samuel's 2-3 turn McDonald's. They're just not the same. Mooney and Moore, they'll be a fun piece when you want to get an exotic Falcon stack. Well, that's all that is. Now, I have a draft that I would like to go over, and I was sniped.
Oh, no.
I was sniped bad, but it ended up being good. I have Jalen Hurts. I was trying to get the Philly stack. This is pre-Saquon Barkley. I got Jalen Hurts and Anthony Richardson. So go down to my tight ends. I'm bullying, and I'm going to stay with two bullies and Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts. Let's run through my receiver room. I have A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Michael Pittman Jr., Jacoby Myers, Marquise Brown. Hey, there's a gift that unwraps. He's with the Chiefs. Got him at pick 110. He's going 40 picks sooner. So thank you. That is awesome. That's why we draft early and often. Roman Wilson, Ricky Pearsall, Malachi Corley, and Malik Washington. We love some Malik Washington. Now, what happened? Let's go through the running backs too. Sorry. Chase Brown was my first running back at pick 107, so we waited a super long time. Kendre Miller, Braylon Allen, Ray Davis, and we practice what we preach. Will Shipley, good 5th, 6th running back on your builds. Here he is. He's my 5th running back. So what happened in this draft? I had Hurts. I went A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson at the 11-14 wraparound picks to start my draft. Then I got so close. I flew so close to the sun. I got Jalen Hurts with pick 35. And then I got sniped. One pick before Michael Pittman Jr. at 37 went Devonta Smith. So we pivot and prospect. We talk about that all the time. We have moves for moves. So I went Michael Pittman at 38 to later retrieve and get Anthony Richardson at pick 59. And then the beauty is Mark Andrews was just sitting there. He fell from pick 53 all the way to pick 62. So I've got huge value there. This team, I'm so happy. You get sniped, you just have to have ways that you pivot and prospect. So whoever took Devonta Smith on me, thank you very much. What do you think of this team, Ed?
I do really like it. I like how you adapted there. You went with a pretty classic 0 RB build, not taking your first running back until the pick 100s. So good job by you. You've got some upside there too with a lot of rookies on the squad. Love the Will Shipley pick as well. And you still got two. You've still got 2 great stacks there with Richardson, and you have AJ Brown on that squad too, right? With Hurts, right? So you've got the 2 elite wide receivers with the 2 elite quarterbacks. You really could, if you really want to press it, like, you could really just go 2 and 2 at the onesie positions if you really want to. I think that's pretty risky, particularly at quarterback. Maybe I think you could get away with that at tight end, but at this point, you could probably wait until round 20 to draft a quarterback if you really want to, because those Hurts and Richardson, they should carry you the whole season. Really, there's a lot of running upside with those guys too, rushing upside. So maybe a bit more injury perhaps, but if you do miss out on 1 or 2 of those guys, that's going to sink your team anyways. I feel like you have to run with that risk potentially. But I would maybe cube a quarterback in round 20 just so that you have that third quarterback, I think, in case some of them miss, either Hurts or Richardson miss some time and there's a bye week or something like that. You want to make sure that this team advances. I see that you got a couple players queued up here. You've got Alex Pierce to pair with Anthony Richardson and Michael Pittman as a nice little cold stack. You also got Kimmy Vidal. I know that Dylan Lobb, it looks like, is still in the queue too. Mm-hmm. I think that we probably differ on our take of Dylan Lobb versus Kimmy Vidal. Maybe that's why I don't take him, because I can't say his name. We talked about that last episode too. But Jeremiah, what are you thinking with this squad here?
So I like what you say about the onesie positions. Of the like mind. I have Hurts and Richardson. If the car breaks down, we're not going to get to our destination. So I'm going to keep Hurts and Richardson. At this point, a third quarterback isn't going to add anything that they can't. And at this point, I'm playing a little bit like insurance. One thing I'm going to try and do in these next wave of drafts is just go, unless, of course, it's a Superflex league, I'm going to go back to 2 quarterback builds just to change it up and to vary my builds. And then for these tight ends, I'm not going to get much better than Andrews and Pitts. I'm going to go all in with them. So I'm going to go 2-2. That's going to allow me to have another running back and another receiver. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to wrap around. If somebody steals Alec Pierce on me in these picks, because I've got one person in between me at the turn, I'm going to go Kamani Vidal. I like Dylan Lobby. He talked about Dylan Lobby about going over the middle, running some slot routes at the Senior Bowl, and he's utilized in the pass game and in the gap. He's a very good player. I like Dylan Lobby, but I'm just going to mix in some Kamani Vidal. I've seen some good film on him on Twitter. Now, the eye test can be the lie test, but I've seen some good people break down Kamani Vidal, and I've heard him percolating throughout some other knowledgeable podcasters and content creators. So I want to get some exposure to Kamani Vidal. He's a good, just late round dart throw, just like any of these running backs at this point. So I'm with you on Dylan Lobby, but I'm going to go in this instance with Kamani Vidal, and then we're going to wrap it around and cap it with Alec Pierce to create the stack of A-Rich, Michael Pittman Jr., and Alec Pierce. So I'm going to click Kamani Vidal here.
Nice. And I do think that if you were going to go with two players at both onesie positions, this would be like the ideal squad to do with. And you're just stacked between Pitts, because I think you also got Pitts at a real value there too, right? Compared to where he's going now as well. So I know you talked about that with Marquise Brown, but I think you also got that with Pitts too. So good job by you with that build there. So talking about and pivoting to some additional moves here, there was a big trade made with the Vikings. They did acquire another first-round pick. They've got two of them now. They look primed to move upward in the draft to select a quarterback. We've got a lot of things going on with the Vikings, particularly after Cousins left. How are you feeling about where the Vikings, how are you approaching, I guess, the Vikings without Kirk Cousins? And who are you speculating on that's going to be the quarterback there, even with Sam Darnold there now? How are you approaching Vikings in the best ball drafts here?
So with Sam Darnold to Justin Jefferson, I will buy Darnold to J.J. Mack as a bridge, or maybe Drake May, I will buy as well. The speculative stack would be J.J. Mack set with the Vikings players. Conservatively, you figure J.J. Mack would start, and that's J.J. McCarthy. He would start the back half of the season for the Vikings. I think he could start a little sooner. I'm bullish on Justin Jefferson. I'm neutral on Jordan Addison at this point, so I'm not too hot, I'm not too cold. I'm in enough. I'm going to get a smattering of TJ Hawkinson in the event he's on the better recovery side than we think, but I'm saying like maybe 5% exposure. We're not going to get out over our skis, and we don't want to be exposed. Aaron Jones at 64 with a 6th-round pick last year, 1.85 yards per route run in 2023. That was number 2 at his position, and that's from Player Profiler. Give me Aaron Jones not being dust in 2024. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you here, Jeremiah. I do think that a lot of these guys are slipping. We've seen Justin Jefferson have a small slip in drafts now. You could get him at pick 6, sometimes pick 7, pick 8, depending upon what running backs are going there now. So I'm definitely buying the small dip with him. I'm going to use that as a chance to increase a lot of my exposure with Justin Jefferson, because the dude is just a baller. And he could excel. If he could excel with Nick Mullins throwing him the football, he could excel with Sam Darnold throwing him the football. I haven't really been drafting Sam Darnold too much, because I do think that they are going to bring in another guy. I do think I do agree with you. I think that it's either going to be May or McCarthy. That's just the vibes I'm getting. I don't know. I could be completely wrong, but I think that that's how it's lining up, particularly if they're able to take those 2 picks and vault into the top 5, maybe top 4, top 3. I've seen some wonky trades with them trying to get into the top 3. I don't think they're going to get to the 3. I think that they'll probably get into the top 5, though. I think that's, like we discussed, I think at the beginning of the show, I think them and the Chargers make a lot of sense. There has been a dip, not just with Jefferson, though. A dip with Addison as well as Hawkinson. I'm certainly buying both. I know that you were concerned about your Hawkinson exposure, and his ADP is still 115-ish. I'm definitely concerned at that area still, but I've been getting him like pretty later in some drafts. I'm going to pull up a draft after we're done talking about this topic where I got him in pick 138. And I'll take that all day, right? Yep. All day. I will buy the dip on them for sure. Aaron Jones, again, definitely not dust. And I agree with you. The terrible radio content, right? Just agreeing with you all over the place, Jeremiah. But that's what it is with these Vikings, because I think the market is really overreacting to Kirk Cousins no longer being there. I did reference this draft, and I am going to pull it up here. This draft, I started it off with the idea of it being a Falcon stack after going Bijan at pick 7. All right. This draft did start prior to free agency. but it is a slow draft. It took on a life of its own once free agency began and some of these ADPs shifted. So we'll start from the top. We've got Lamar Jackson, who's unstacked on this team, along with Kirk Cousins. We got Kirk and Bijan. We've got, to pair with Kirk, we've got Bijan Robinson, who we took at pick 7. Isaiah Pacheco, who fell a little bit, so added him to the squad. And then Chase Brown, who also fell a little bit and added him to the squad as well. Our wide receiver room is Brandon Ayuk, Drake London, DeAndre Hopkins, Deontay Johnson, Jamison Williams, and Roman Wilson. We also have Njoku, and as I discussed previously, Hawkinson here at pick 138. I've got a lot of good values, scooping up a lot of good values. I feel like in this particular draft, I've got right now 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends, 3 running backs, 6 wide receivers. I want to keep it at 2 and 2 for now. I don't really feel pressed to add anywhere on those particular positions. Running back, I also don't really feel pressed either because I do have Robinson and Pacheco. You know, the theory behind this build, I think, is that the Falcons smash. That's why we have Bijan and London on the team as well as Kirk. I think that's the idea behind it. So I want to lean into that. Maybe not go running back here, and maybe just add to some more wide receiver. I mean, we do have some solid veteran presence as well as some upside here with both Hopkins and Johnson adding some stability. Jamison Williams and Roman Wilson sort of shooting for some upside. I've got some players in the queue, which include Wan'Dale Robinson, who I adore. I've got him on way too many teams and probably will be overexposed to him this year because I just don't understand why he's going so low. His ADP has dropped since free agency. I don't know why, but it has. But here we are. I also have Adam Thielen in the queue with the idea of potentially going Bryce Young late, have like Carolina stack with him and Johnson. I feel like those are the 2 receivers that are probably going to see the most opportunity there. And who knows, if Bryce Young takes a step forward, that could happen. And then I've got basically a poo-poo platter of some running backs here. Kendre Miller, who I don't think is poop, but he's definitely somebody that I would consider here over some players that might just be poop in Antonio Gibson and Tyler Algier, but have some path to opportunity. Jeremiah, what do you think of this build so far? And what do you think about these players that I've got lined up in the queue? And where would you go here if you're looking at this team and looking to make a pick?
Remember, while we have a naked Lamar, we could always finish it off with some Rashad Bateman. So we always have that out. We love that. I would have a question for you. You like Wan'Dale Robinson. You have a lot of Wan'Dale Robinson. In this instance, though, since you're on the track with Deontay Johnson, you're thinking about Bryce Young later. Are you thinking about maybe de-risking yourself from some Wan'Dale Robinson exposure and flattening and maybe going on that path where you go Adam Thielen and then pair he and Deontay with Bryce Young? How would you feel about that?
That is definitely where I'm leaning here. I do have Wan'Dale Robinson higher in the queue because in a vacuum, I do like him a lot better than Adam Thielen, but that is definitely where I'm leaning here with this build. I do want to have, particularly with Cousins coming off the ACL, Lamar being a huge rushing quarterback, and he is naked in this team. So this team could thrive if Lamar just gets hurt. That could happen, right? So I would be kicking myself if the Falcons absolutely smash and Lamar just is hurt and I don't have somebody that carries me in the instances where like Bijan has his day as opposed to Drake London. I do think I want to definitely add a third quarterback here. And the idea of having a Carolina stack does intrigue me. I will say, I don't know if it's just because we're getting farther and farther away from the end of last year. And I'm forgetting about how bad Bryce Young really was as a rookie. Mm-hmm. But I've really been getting a lot more exposure to Bryce Young later. He's somebody that I will take. Previous episodes we talked about the Giant stack as like some of the backdoor stacks that we would pursue. But I've really been leaning into the Carolina stack to try and replace that. And I think I'm going to do it here. So I am going to take Adam Thielen here. I think that's probably the way to go. And welcome to the team, Adam Thielen.
Well, I like what you did there. And really what you're saying with Bryce Young, I totally understand what you mean. You have to click the ugly out of it. Like a one player that I'll click where we talk about build versus in a vacuum. Jalen Waddle is a player we talked about last week that we want to click him just a little bit more. And it hurts. It feels weird those first few times, but it continually gets a little bit easier when you're understanding that this is a portfolio game. And with Bryce Young, I would just say it's a lot like when you first start going to the gym and you're lifting weights. In that first week, every different body part that you work is feeling more sore. But as you get your work in week over week, month over month, you're clicking Bryce Young more frequently. Part of that is some amnesia from what happened last season, but it does become easier. And then when you trust the process and you push down the quarterback and you get that third quarterback, all of a sudden you just get adept at Bryce Young's ADP and getting him on your team, getting these builds. And then instead of looking forward from early, you can look from the back of your draft to the earlier picks, and you just love what you got late. So it's a process play, and that just sounds like a lot of growth on your part and just having this discipline. It's disgusting, but we have to do these things where we have to go where the crowd isn't before that value picks up, because Dave Canales could really turn this offense around, and Deontay is just the first step. We may have another receiver come into town. So I like what you did there, Ed. Now what I'll do is I'll go over, we're going to talk about the rookies and sophomores. Underdog just dropped the tournament. What strategies are we using in this build? How are we attacking this tournament? I'll just let you all know. It's a 1 QB, 1 running back, 2 wide receiver tight end, 1 flex, and then there's 7 bench spots, 12 rounds, 4-person drafts. You have 11,200 entrants. It's filled 35% last time I just checked. And there's 48 total picks. So when we look at our ADPs, it's only 48 picks to be had. There's going to be players not drafted who could be good for you. And there'll be players who are drafted, of course, who could be toast. Just know that the quarterback, I am cornering the quarterback market. If I can get 2 stud quarterbacks, I am set. I'll even stay put at a 2 QB build as I want to invest in other positions. I've seen 2-4-6. That seemed to be reflection of the balance of filling out our lineup. So 2-4-6 builds seem very good. Tight ends are less important. So when I see a 2-4-6 build, I understand I got to fill 2 quarterbacks for 1 quarterback position. In the 4 running backs that I draft, they have to fill out the 1 running back, but they could also fill out a second flex spot. And then for the receivers, if I get 6 of them, they can fill out not only the 2 wide receiver tight end position, but they can also, a third one of those 6 can fill out that flex spot. So that's where I'm balancing things. This will push running back down the board if I don't have an anchor running back. So I'm thinking rookies like Will Shipley, Ray Davis, they both have a 47 ADP. So remember, 48 picks. And we like Will Shipley and we like Ray Davis. And then you also have Kamani Vidal that we talked about and Dylan Johnson. Neither of them have an ADP. At wide receiver, Ricky Pearsall, 47. Malachi Corley, 47. All right, some of them have the same number. Malik Washington is 48. At tight end, Michael Mayer is 47. So on a push QB down the board, the QB values, ready? Bo Nix at 41. Michael Penix Jr., 43. Spencer Rattler at 47. So there's really ways that you can push the board regardless of the position. But those are just a few thoughts that I have early. Ed, how about for you?
Yeah, so this is going to be my first year doing a rookies and sophomore contest. I know that they had it last year. I did not do it because it just seemed too beyond the beyonds for my brain at the time. I have been going to night school. I've been trying to learn up here, study up, and I feel like I might dabble in it a little bit here this year. I do agree with you. I do think that quarterback does dry up quick. You only have to start one of them for this team. With respect to what you're looking at, the only quarterback in here that I think is a for sure thing is essentially CJ Stroud. That's the guy, right? So I think that he's going to skyrocket up boards. He's usually taken, it's the way that it is, as you explained, there's 4 teams in each draft. So he's obviously usually taken in the first round, either pick 101. I've seen him at the 102. I'm in a draft right now where he went at 103. He's going to be gone because he's just that safe. And you're going to want that safe play at quarterback, or else you're going to have to take some of these dart throws later on that are just mystery boxes. You're going to be drafting Drake May. You're going to be drafting Will Levis. You're going to be drafting Bryce Young. You don't really know what you're getting there. And you're certainly probably not going to get the amount of points that CJ Stroud's going to be putting up, right? You definitely are going to prioritize the quarterbacks here for sure, because it does dry up very quickly. I think particularly in this type of format, you've got really like one, I would say that you've got like 2, maybe 3 running backs, depending upon how you really view A-Chain, right? As to who you would consider a hero build in this type of format. To me, I'm really only focusing in on like Bijan and maybe Gibbs as that hero build. And if I get him, you only have to start one running back for this team. I will be taking him and maybe 2 other backs and then just calling it, right? And just trying to hammer at either quarterback, because I'm going to have to make up that deficiency, because if you're taking Bijan, you're taking him in round 1, you're not going to be getting CJ Stroud. So you're going to have to make up that deficiency elsewhere. And you're going to hope that somebody like Anthony Richardson makes it back to you, which he might not. So you're going to have to like really make it up with quarterbacks there. So you're going to have to be getting like 3 of them at least. And you're going to have to prioritize them rather early. So you're going to have to push running back way down the board, because you're also going to want to get a bunch of receivers here, because there is a lot of talent that is up top here with Puka Nacua, Marvin Harrison, Rashee Rice, Tank Dell, Neighbors. All of those guys could really be the wide receiver ones on their team. And you're going to want to get exposure to them more so than the running backs early, I think. So I do think that if you're going to attack this, you're going to want to have a good feeling as to who is going to be available when you're picking, and then structure your build from there on out, because the talent pool is extremely limited. I agree with a lot of the later players that you mentioned. Spencer Rattler, I think, is a really good, intriguing dart throw if you're just, are you desperate at quarterback, which you could very well be in this type of team, build, this type of league. And he's definitely worth a gamble. I also sort of like Malik Cunningham. I don't know. Malik Cunningham he was on the Pats for the entire year last year, but he's currently on the Ravens. He might back up Lamar. He might not. I don't know, but that's just intriguing because he's got a lot of rushing capability there. That is just, for me, if you're going to make like a last pick and just spice it up, and you need maybe like another quarterback, just take him there, I think. I do some of the guys that have contingent upside in this type of format too, insofar as Izzy Abanikanda, Evan Hull, Chris Rodriguez, all those guys that are going to have roles if the guy gets hurt in front of them. And you could get those guys super late, and that 0 could literally be your hero and help you win this league. So I do like those. There are some also wide receivers that I do, but it's really just pick your preference. I do think we did discuss some process about how to draft this league, but I do think that in this type of format, more so than the big board or other things, it's more just trying to pick the right players, right? Which is, if there's one thing that we know about fantasy football, is that we don't know anything, or we know very limited information, right? That's how I'm approaching this league. I know I talked a lot there. Jeremiah, it looks like you pulled up a rookie sophomore draft here. You want to talk about where you're at and what you're thinking?
So I'm thinking we could end with, I think I have a couple rookie sophomore drafts. We can close those out and then be on our way. Here we have QB Anthony Richardson and Jaden Daniels. So I am done. We're coasting. We're so happy with what we've got. Chase Brown is my lone running back right now. I got him at pick 23. Marvin Harrison went at pick 7. Sam Laporta at pick 15. Brian Thomas Jr. at 18. Josh Downs at 26. Now on the board at the top of the queue, I have Dalton Kincaid. Now my problem is, in this build, I already have Sam Laporta as a tight end who's mixing in. Granted, he can finish in a range with other wide receivers that is palatable. I don't know how I feel about two tight ends being in this mix, being palatable compared to the field. I do think I want to go running back, but prior to the pick where I skipped on Dalton Kincaid, I went with Josh Downs. So I picked Josh Downs over Dalton Kincaid with Sam Laporta in mind. In a vacuum, I would prefer Dalton Kincaid. But I have now Anthony Richardson, which I think this will be very unique. It'll be tougher to have stacks because they don't all just match up. I've got Josh Downs stacked with Anthony Richardson. So that's just a little riddle that I solved there just on the fly. Maybe it'll be something, or it could just blow up in my face. So now at the top of my queue, I have some other wide receivers. I have Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey, but now I'm sitting over here thinking about Jalen Wright or Will Shipley. Jalen Wright is 43 ADP. Will Shipley is 47. They're much later, but in this band of players, I actually have Blake Corum, so I missed him. I have Blake Corum at 35, so I'm going to move Corum up in my queue. What do you think I should do? Which direction?
So before we talk about that, I want to get your thoughts on just stacking in this format. It sounds like it's something that you definitely prioritize, because again, you said that in a vacuum you would probably take Kincaid over Downs, right? So is that something that you're like really prioritizing in this particular format, or is it something that because of the limited player pool, you're just like, hey man, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, like, no big deal. Where are you at with that? Because I'm probably more the latter. It sounds like you might be the former. So there might be some disagreement there. So I'm just trying to suss that out.
I'm with you actually. I don't see the stacking being that important in this event, just because you have such a limited player pool. But I just like the idea of going Downs over Kincaid, just for the fact that I don't know how I could have two tight ends who are going to stack with all the other wide receivers and fill out my receiver position. I may be wrong here. Would you go? Because I still have Dalton Kincaid. He came back to me. You love something, you let it go. I let him go, and he's still on the board. Would you go Dalton Kincaid here and push running back further?
Oof, man, that's tough because you have Chase Brown as the sole running back there. He's probably going to start the season in some type of timeshare. Mm-hmm. He might wrestle some of that opportunity away from Zach Moss. I'm a little skeptical that he does that. I feel like they probably, it seems like just the way that the Bengals have acted in the offseason, that they view him as that change of pace, that like Tony Pollard. And I think like maybe like best case scenario, you're looking at like Zeke's final year in Dallas with Pollard, where I think Pollard was like a top 20 running back compared to Zeke, who was like a little lower than him on that. If I got that history correct in my brain there. So I wouldn't really punt running back too much, although I suppose you could. Kincaid, I do think is interesting insofar as we talked about Diggs previously and a lot of that drama happening there, as well as like how he ended the season. Would you be shocked if, like, end the season like Kincaid is like the guy in Buffalo? Would you be shocked by that? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how shocked would you be? With 10 being like I'm gobsmacked, and 1 being like, yeah, I saw this coming the entire way.
I think it's very much in the middle, where it wouldn't be necessarily out of the picture. We don't expect it, but I can see it. And I might, the more we talk about it, see it in a 6-7 level, where Dalton Kincaid could absolutely take the next step up and be that guy who matriculates. I was thinking earlier about Kyle Pitts versus Dalton Kincaid, and how in a vacuum I think I take Kyle Pitts. But we don't have Kyle Pitts over here. I could easily see, like you're saying, fast forward next year, why can't Dalton Kincaid be a third-round pick with Josh Allen elevating him a la Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce? Okay, I'll give you – do you want us to go Blake Corum or Dalton Kincaid here?
Yeah, I think that's a tough call. What other – can you just click on running back just because I'm still trying to get
Sure.
acclimated with this tournament. So it's hard to conceptualize these
Yep.
guys when I haven't made it through a single one yet. So I'm still learning here at night school.
Jonathan Brooks, who I don't like so much just because he could start the season slow. Charbonnet, Corum, Jaleel McLaughlin, Jalen Wright. Roshan is toast. Allen, Kendre Miller.
How is Roshan still that high? What are people doing here? Like, why is Roshan going over Kendre Miller? That should not be happening. Yeah, you know what? I think that if in this type of build, because you didn't necessarily go like 0 RB here, you went RB a little later than otherwise would be. I think that you could probably go. I would probably go Kincaid here and then just call it somewhat of a day with the wide receiver tight end position, and then just hammer running back later on. You've got the 2 quarterbacks. You have some flexibility there because you have that extra position there because you are going to roll with Anthony Richardson and Jaden Daniels, which, by the way, is amazing. There's just so much upside there with the rushing capability of both those quarterbacks that you're going to likely be looking at boom weeks constantly from those two. So that's probably what I would do, and just hammer running back later.
So now that you say it too, we love tight ends who could be the number one in their offense. And it's not 80, 90, 100% shot with Kincaid in Buffalo with Diggs still there. But it's a higher percentage than last year, chance or opportunity. Then with Laporta, something could happen to Amon-Ra St. Brown or any of those backs like Jahmyr Gibbs, who requires a lot in passing game. Sam Laporta very well. Kincaid and Laporta could be the number one receivers in their respective offenses. So I put Dalton Kincaid on the board. Just to review everybody, Anthony Richardson, Jaden Daniels are my 2 quarterbacks. We set forget right there. We push running back down the board with Chase Brown. I have Marvin Harrison Jr., Sam Laporta, Brian Thomas Jr., Josh Downs, stacked with Anthony Richardson. We happen to like it. We're not enthralled with it. And Dalton Kincaid. So I skipped Kincaid, and I got him to come back to me. We like where this team is going. I'm going to go to one more draft for our rookies and sophomores, and then we'll end the show. In here, I have now, Ed, Anthony Richardson and C.J. Stroud. You were big on C.J. Stroud, and there it was at pick 8, 2 picks past ADP. I have no running backs right now. I've got Rashee Rice, Jaden Reed, Jordan Addison, and Josh Downs. So there I go again. I said something like, I'm not trying to force a stack, but then again, that really is nice. And this is one that is just appearing to me organically. In my queue, I'm not scared to just continue with the receiver and tight end. In my queue, I have JSN, Adonai Mitchell, and then, of course, Blake Corum and Jalen Wright, who we passed up in the last draft for Dalton Kincaid. So which direction would you go? Would you go running back here or just keep pushing with receiver?
There are 12 rounds here, right? You've got again another build where you're probably looking at just 2 quarterbacks only because you literally have flopped the nuts, right? With CJ Stroud and Richardson. And I really like the strategy that you did there because I think you took Richardson over before Stroud, right? You picked him before Stroud and Stroud fell. Is that what happened? You did.
Yeah, I yanked the steering wheel.
Nice.
Richardson is pick 5. I just went 1.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. You set yourself up so nicely by just taking this draft by the reins and doing that. I like that a lot. I think you could go running back here. I would. Oh man, this is tough because I don't really Blake Corum as a prospect.
Okay.
But I just feel like he's going to be a Charger. Like you just get that feeling. Yeah. But maybe we're wrong. I would probably still you've got a lot of good receivers left. I think you got like good second-year breakout candidates with JSN. Kincaid, I believe, is also still on the board. Yes. If I saw that right too. Yep. Yeah. I think that you could really go either way here. But because there's no running back here, you're in the 7th round. You've got more than half the draft completed at this point. I guess the question is, how many running backs do you feel like you're going to draft on this team? Are you going to be in that like more towards the 5 or towards the 3? You're probably going to be more towards the 5.
I don't feel bad about just keep pushing this receiver build and just take stabs at these later running backs, whether it's Dylan Lobby, whether it's Kamani Vidal, Dylan Johnson, who I mentioned before, he doesn't even get drafted. I'm prone to maybe go crazy and just do this absurd build here with JSN or Adonai Mitchell. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you could definitely go in that direction. I wouldn't fault you for that because, again, the way that we talked about the strategy on this, like, you know, you only need to start one running back, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like you've got to fill that position like with 2 players every week, or like you even really want them in your flex. That works for me, man. If you want to just keep pulling it and keep going for it, shoot for upside and go from there.
So how we'll close out night school. I'm going to roll with Adonai Mitchell with the idea that quite possibly CJ Stroud could end up with another drafted wide receiver. And if that happens to be Adonai Mitchell staying in Texas, that would just be a beautiful chef's kiss thing right here. So I'm going to continue to push the running backs down the board. 0 running back build right now. Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud are my 2 stud quarterbacks. I've got Rashee Rice. Isn't that nice? Jaden Reed, Jordan Addison, Josh Downs, stacked with A. Rich, and then Adonai Mitchell, who maybe we'll see will cook something up and uncover a gift of CJ Stroud. This has been Night School. I'm Jeremiah. He's Ed. We'll see you next week. Peace.
School's out.